Night by Elie Wiesel, Part 1, Analysis. The first part of Night by Elie Wiesel is weighed down with the oppressiveness of impending disaster. The Jewish people have asked themselves for decades whether they could better have avoided the horrors of the Nazi Holocaust, or at least known what they were going to expect. And Wiesel describes an element of complacency. Of course, the Jews of Sighet, a little town in Transylvania, had no way of knowing the scale of the killing. Today in the United States, sadly, fewer and fewer students are aware of the enormity of the Holocaust, a systemic and state-organized killing of over 6 million Jews by Nazi Germany. Hitler, of course, killed others such as Slavs, Romani people, and the mentally ill, but Jews bore the brunt of his anger. The story of Moshe the Beadle at the opening of Night is the most glaring example of the Jewish population's unwillingness or inability to understand their fate. Moshe is impoverished and described as a clown by the author. Moshe befriends the author and teaches him about the Kabbalah, a school of thought in Jewish mysticism. The foreign Jews, including Moshe, were expelled from Sighet earlier on. It was rumored that they were in Galicia and they were forgotten about, but Moshe returns and tells a terrifying tale to the townsfolk. After crossing the Hungarian border into Poland, the Jews were forced to dig huge trenches by the Gestapo, the German secret police. The Nazis then shot them one by one and let them fall into the trenches they dug. Infants were tossed into the air and used as targets for the machine guns, Wiesel writes. Moshe was wounded in the leg and escaped to tell the grisly tale. Understandably, Moshe was no longer the same. The joy in his eyes was gone. He no longer mentioned either God or the Kabbalah, Wiesel writes. Sadly, people refused to listen to him, treating his tales as those of a madman. He kept shouting in the synagogue. Even I did not believe him, Wiesel wrote. The first part of Night establishes a later theme, namely Wiesel's struggle to maintain his devout faith, given the horrors that he endured. Moshe no longer mentions God after witnessing the awfulness of the Holocaust. Wiesel will face the same dilemma. The Jews of Sighet appear to be in a state of denial. They want to believe they will not suffer the fates of Jews across Europe, and they don't know the full extent of what's going on. Life seems normal again towards the end of 1942. By the spring of 1944, there's splendid news from the Eastern Front, where the Russians are advancing against the Germans. We even doubted his resolve to exterminate us, Wiesel writes of Adolf Hitler. But people worried more when the fascists took over the Hungarian government. Still, the false sense of optimism remains until German vehicles appeared on the streets of Sighet. Anguish, German soldiers with their steel helmets and their death's head emblem, the author writes. The death's head denotes the SS, the sinister Nazis who run the death camps. The Germans arrested the leader of the Jewish community. From that moment on, everything happened very quickly. The race towards death had begun, Wiesel wrote. The Jews were rounded up into ghettos and ready for transportation. Wiesel's father, a respected community leader, is one of the first people to be notified of what's going on. Night documents and pays homage to Wiesel's father. He ended a good story or anecdote when he was summoned to a special meeting of the council and returned later that night, his face drained of colour. The news is terrible, he said at last, and then one word, transports. The good story his father was going to tell remains unfinished. This is a metaphor for the story of the European Jews as they entered their darkest hour under the Nazis. The night before, Wiesel is forced onto a train with his family, is heavy with dark symbolism. No one was praying for the night to pass quickly, he writes. The stars were but sparks in the immense conflagration that was consuming us. Were this conflagration to be extinguished, one day nothing would be left in the sky but extinct stars and unseeing eyes, he writes. The night is about to consume him and those he loves.